How can I trust my intuition? As a professional tarot reader, astrologer, and working witch, this is a question I get all the time. So, for those of you guys who don't know me, hi, I'm Erin with What a Witch Knows. I rely on my intuition every day in my personal readings with clients, and I help people get in touch with their own intuition. So, when you're first learning to work with your intuition, it's kind of like when you're first starting to learn to ride a bike. So, learning to trust yourself is a huge part of that learning process. So, when you're learning to ride a bike, you start small by going shorter distances until eventually you start to get more confident and then you can go longer and longer distances. It's the same way with your intuition. So, when you're first working with your intuition, you can recognize its voice because it will be soft yet firm. It will be very direct and it will often speak to you in actions. So, for example, turn right. That's it. Very simple, very clear. You will feel very calm and very sure about it. There will be no sense of panic or stress around it. Now, one way you can learn to trust your intuition is by then following through on its suggestion and then paying attention to what happens next. So you turn right. What happened? Did you bump into a friend you hadn't seen in a while? Did you avoid a roadblock? Did you notice a synchronicity, meaning a moment when your inner world syncs up with your outer world in a way that feels very significant? Write it down and keep track of these moments because they are confirmations. And over time, those confirmations will help you trust your intuition more. Now, I specifically use an example of a small action like turn right, because what's the harm in following that? It's worth a try, right? What's the worst that could happen? You could lose a few minutes of your time. And the best that could happen is that you get a confirmation and you start that process of unlocking your intuition more. Because eventually, what will happen is that you'll start to trust your intuition more and more in every moment, and it will feel as though you always knew how to do it. You just had to remember how, just like riding a bike. Now, if your intuition is telling you to do something big, like quit your job and move across the country, especially if you're new to working with your intuition, I would tap the brakes on that and just take a step back to examine, is this really the voice of my intuition? Or is it the voice of fear, anxiety, or ego? Now, learning to discern intuition from fear, anxiety, and ego is a really important skill to learn, especially when you're first starting out. And to learn more about that and other intuition basics, you can check out my intuition playlist that I will link below. But the main takeaway here is that when you start small and build up that trust, you can eventually learn to rely on your intuition for bigger and bigger decisions.